Here for day 3 of the WarriorFit program in phase 1, we're at Canton Barbell with owner Michael Mercer. And for set 1, he's first going to demonstrate the squat. So here he's doing a goblet variation. Notice how he has the weight up at his chest. He goes into a full deep squat, elbows are coming down to his knees, and then rises back up. From the side, you'll notice that he keeps his back straight. He drives his hips forward as he comes up. Notice how he keeps his heels down the entire time. The way to make this easier is, rather than doing squat, we're going to have Michael do a bridge. So as you've done in other parts of your program, here he's going to first set his back flat to the ground, and then he's going to drive his hips up using his glutes, making sure that he's achieving the full motion. The way to make this harder is, of course, you resume the squat and just increase the weight. For the second exercise in set 1 of day 3, we have the anti-rotation arm swings. Here we want to work on your ability to use your abs while swinging your arms when running. Notice how Michael is in an even position with his weight on both legs. Notice how he's swinging his arms as he would when he runs, but he's not allowing any rotation of his torso as he goes. The way to make this easier is by dropping the weight and then resuming that same motion as he's going. So again, the mechanics don't change at all, just the resistance does. The way to make this harder is by going on one leg, and now, even without the resistance, he's still having to control that same rotation. If this is not challenging enough, he could, of course, add the band back. For set 2 of day 3, first Michael's going to demonstrate the step up. Here he's got a 12-inch jump box, and look how he's holding the weight at his chest. Notice how he's keeping his back in a neutral alignment, driving through the elevated leg to push himself all the way up into full extension, only using the off leg for balance as need be. He's going to drive all the way up, keeping his knee above his foot the entire time. Notice how it doesn't wiggle inwards. Notice how his hips don't shift to the left or to the right. Notice how he keeps the weight at a centered position. If this is too challenging, what you can do is just lower the surface. Here Michael's using a plyometric box that he has at his gym, but you can use any kind of sturdy step at the house or at a park or whatever is comfortable. So to make this more challenging, you can either stay at the current height and then increase the weight, or you can lower the weight and increase the height. Also, for the no equipment variation, you can use a reusable grocery bag like we have here in front of the jump boxes, rather than a dumbbell like Michael was just using. For set 2 of day 3, the first exercise is an offset or asymmetrical bench press. Here Michael is laying with only half of his body on the bench, as you can see from this view. So he's having to use his glutes on his right leg to hold his hip up, not letting his hip drop, and his abdominals to not let his body rotate the rest of the way off the bench as he now presses his arm up and down. The way to make this easier is either to get rid of the weight or slide your body back onto the bench, and now all of a sudden you can put the other leg down and it becomes just a regular one-arm bench press. You're still having to control some of that rotation, just more of your torso is now supported. The way to make this harder is you can either add a pause if you don't have another weight, or of course you could increase the weight as well. The next exercise in set 2 is the lateral lunge and press. Here Michael's set up on a cable machine. You see him do a full lateral lunge and a press before finishing the lunge and returning to the starting position. Notice how he's keeping his pelvis level, he's keeping his knee aligned with his foot, and he's going into the full depth as if he was doing a regular squat. The way to make this easier is Michael's going to do a split stance lateral lunge, and he's also just going to simulate the row with his hands. So the whole point is getting you stable on one leg and using your arms and having to stabilize in that position. Notice how his mechanics don't change from the first version. The way to make this harder is to resume the lunge pattern without the weight, or add the weight back in and continue to do the split stance variation. For the final exercise in set 2 of day 3, we have the side plank. These same instructions work for the no equipment variation as with your normal workout. So Michael is making the point to not allow his pelvis to roll backwards or too far forwards. See how his sternum, his chest, is equal with his groin and his legs, and he's using that upper arm for balance. If this is too hard, what he's gonna do is, instead of being on his feet, he's gonna go on his knees, and now he's keeping himself in the exact same position, but now his legs are shorter. You should only feel this in your abdominals and some on that bottom side of the cheek, on the outer portion of the bottom leg. The way to make this harder is you can either stay here and lift the leg, or you can go to the first version if you are graduating from being on your knees, or if you started in this version, you can then come up into a regular side plank and then lift that top leg up once you're in that side plank, once you're comfortable. Hold that for the same duration as you used to. For set 3 of day 3, first Michael is going to demonstrate the bear crawl. So here he's going to apply the same principles as a push-up or a plank as he locomotes across the floor. Notice how his torso, his back, is staying in a flat alignment. He could even set something on here if he didn't have a mirror or somebody watching him as he goes. Notice how his knees stay the same height above the ground the entire time, feeling this in his abdominals and his shoulder blade muscles. If this is too challenging, instead what he's going to do is a baby crawl, what we're calling a bear crawl, but now his knees are on the ground. He's using the same mechanics, taking even steps as he goes back and forth, but now instead he's just on the floor rather than being elevated the entire time. If this is still too hard, what he's going to do is get in place, and then he's just going to elevate his knees up off the ground and do like an isometric, and then just hold that position for maybe 10 seconds, come back down, reset, again, come back up. Still trying to just learn how to use his shoulder blades and his arms to brace himself in an even position. If that's too challenging, you can go to a plank, of course, or some of the other abdominal exercises that we've worked on. If that's too easy, you can increase the amount of distance that you're going, increase the amount of time you're staying up in the air, or maybe even put on a weight vest. For the second exercise in set 3, Michael's going to do resisted band jumps. Notice how he's got a band connected to the squat rack in his gym. So here he's picked points on the floor, and now he's jumping out to that distance. He should be feeling this on the left side, the outside of his hip. Notice how he's loading his leg in a neutral position, meaning his knee is facing the same position as his foot the entire time. He's not really spending much time on his outside leg, nor is he feeling much work in that outside leg. The way to make this easier is, instead of jumping to that first point, he's instead now going to jump to a closer point, using the same mechanics, but now not just going quite as far. As you feel more comfortable with this, he can go that same distance but increase the tempo, just like that. Again, loading more the inside leg rather than the outside leg. If this is even still too easy, you can increase the distance and the tempo, or just like that. Or if it's too challenging, we would remove the band altogether. For the third and final exercise, set 3, day 3, Michael's going to demonstrate the diagonal cable lift. Here he's in a half squat position. He's got his outside hand underneath the rope, inside hand over top of the rope. This allows him to use his outside shoulder to help with the motion. He's first and foremost using his abdominals to not let his top half rotate away from his bottom half. He was also making the point of keeping his hands right next to his chest as he moves. If this is too challenging, either because of shoulder issues or you're not confident with the technique, you can eliminate the lift component and now just make it a horizontal motion. Here, Michael is using the same mechanics, but now instead of aiming above his head, he's now pulling it straight across his chest, just as you see here. And again, not letting his torso rotate separate from his leg position. The way to make this more challenging is rather than pulling near his body as he just did, he's instead going to keep his arms straight and now make a big circular motion across his body. So you can do this from this horizontal position, or of course you could do it from the diagonal position if that's where you progressed to and or started. The final thing is just be mindful that you can always change the weight if need be as well.